Microphone check, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a microphone check for a 1 o'clock press conference in Ventura County. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mic check, 1, 2, 3, 4.
You guys want to do a mic test real quick? I'll check the volume.
Mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Copy. I, mic check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Microphone check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Microphone check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we should be getting started in the next 3 to 4 minutes.
See the microphone back up. Hey, Matt. I'm just going to rotate.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I, people lay on the floor of the ledger at the center when they're taking
Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matt Levere. I'm the deputy mayor here in the city of Ventura. Thank you for being here. The night of December 4th, 2017, like many in this community, is a night that I will never forget the rest of my life. That night, as the fire was racing down these very foothills, my family and I were abruptly evacuated from our home just 100 yards away here. It was 11:30. The power was out across the entire city. And as we were leaving and we saw those flames rushing towards our house, we'd never know if we'd see our house again. You know, that night, under the cover of darkness, with the fastest moving fire in the history of the state, our first responders evacuated 27,000 Venturans. If it were not for the brilliance of our first responders, our firefighters, and our police, there could have been hundreds, if not thousands, of lives lost. That night, little did we know that the Thomas Fire would turn into the largest wildfire in the history of the state, with over 280,000 acres burned, thousands of structures lost, thousands more burned. Here in Ventura, we lost 540 homes, several hundred more damaged. And we woke up on the morning of December 5th, and when we saw the true damage and destruction that was left behind by the Thomas Fire, you know, it seemed like today would never come. But here we are, proud to announce that here is on May 11th, there's only a handful of homes. Of those 540 homes that were destroyed in Ventura, only a handful are left. Every other single one has been cleaned up, debris removed, and people are ready to move on with their lives and to rebuild their homes. And none of that would have been possible without the true leadership and cooperation of all the individuals you see behind me right now. What also happened on the morning of December 5th, even pushing into the late hours of December 4th, was the county, the city, the state, and the federal resources all coming together as a team and fighting back. And the cooperation was seamless. I can only imagine the destruction would have happened if it weren't for such immediate cooperation and teamwork. And so representing the city of Ventura, I can just thank from the bottom of my heart each and every person, man and woman behind me. Because although there was a lot of destruction in our town, I can only imagine what would have happened if it were not for these incredible people working so hard together. And so with that, I would like to introduce our supervisor for the 1st District, Mr. Steve Bennett.
Thank you very much, Matt. On behalf of the Ventura County Board of Supervisors and Supervisor Kelly Long, who is with me here today, I want to say how happy we are and proud to be a part of this event today, where we announce essentially the end of the public debris removal part of the process. We had the fastest moving fire in the history of California. We also had the fastest evacuation, and under extreme conditions where there was no power, a complete blackout. And now I think everybody is proud to announce that we're having the fastest debris removal process that's happened in California also. And why did this happen? It happened because a whole lot of professionals, the men and women at Cal OES, at Cal Recycle, on our fire department, on our police department, in our in our environmental health departments at the county, city, all of those professionals, almost all of them paid for by the taxpayers, delivered for the taxpayers tremendous value. And we are so much stronger as a community because of this. So not only did they give us the fastest debris removal that has happened in California history, but they gave us something else far more important, and that is all of the people that have been impacted by this got a sense of dignity back because they were treated with such care by these professionals. They were treated in a way that they felt the government was on their side trying to help them solve the tremendous problems that they have. So on behalf of everybody involved in the process and all of the various government agencies, I want to say thank you, and I'm happy to turn this over to another great state agency. That's the state of California, and the first representative is our great senator from this district, and that's Hannah Beth Jackson. Thank you.
My name is Hannah Beth Jackson. I have the honor and privilege of being the state senator representing the 19th Senate District. What is that district? Every ember of this fire was in the 19th Senate District, from its start at the Thomas Aquinas School through the upper Ojai area, all the way through to Montecito and back into the backcountry of the Los Padres National Forest. 40 days this fire burned, and the destruction that it laid in its wake was absolutely unimaginable. The work that was done by our first responders, our government agencies, was nothing less than extraordinary. This is government at its finest. They worked very, very hard, very closely, risking life and limb, sometimes 24/7, to make sure that the people of this community and of the entire 19th District were safe. And the fact that even though this was the largest wildfire in the history of California, there was one firefighter who lost his life fighting this fire. And when we celebrated after the extraordinary work, only to find on January 9th a debris flow that then destroyed the lives, killed 21 we found, but 2 other missing people, and created such havoc in our neighboring community of Montecito. Again, adding more of the unspeakable to what had already been an extraordinary experience for all of us. And yet our first responders were still there. And they are still with us today. As you see behind me, these are the heroes of California. I cannot say enough about them. I cannot thank these people enough. People like Mark Iladucci, who is the director of our Office of Emergency Management, with whom I've had the privilege of working. I chair the Joint Legislative Committee on Emergency Management. In fact, on December 4th, at 5 o'clock, I banged down the gavel in Sacramento on a hearing that I had just completed on our emergency alert systems and their impact in the fires in Northern California, which had, as mentioned, taken out over 8,000 structures back in October. Banged the gavel down at 5 o'clock, observing that it was December and hopefully our fire season was over, that would have a few months at least to reconnoiter and reevaluate our systems and how we were handling these wildfires, only to find out and to learn an hour and a half later at 6:30 on December 4th that the Thomas Fire had started. And 40 days later, we finally moved that fire out into the back country. With the help of FEMA, with the help of our Office of Emergency Services, with the help of Cal Recycle, with the help of firefighters from all over the state and western United States, and our county people who were staffing the various facilities to help those who had been impacted by the fire, to the fact that I just came just now from the Upper Ojai area, where I was meeting with different people who had lost their homes to find out how things were going, to learn that so many of these people were underinsured, if insured at all, and the difficulties that they're experiencing as they try to rebuild their lives. But we are a resilient people. We are a people who learned and came together, made lemonade out of the lemons that were handed to us in this fire season. But recognizing that the fire season continues, that climate change has had its impact, that we're seeing more drought. We're seeing times when the humidity, at one point I know in Montecito, as that fire was moving in Montecito, the humidity was 1%. And the winds were blowing at 50 miles an hour, and we've been in drought for several years. We need to prepare for these going forward, and I know that with the great people who are standing behind me who have fought this fire, with the work that the governor's done and the money he's put into the budget this year going forward so we can address better management practices of our fires as a result of climate change, there is hope. And with the stories I've heard about how this community came together to work with each other, to recognize our common humanity, there truly has been something good that has come from something so extraordinarily difficult. And with that, I want to thank everyone here. I want to thank the people who have cleared off the debris, giving people the opportunity to start to rebuild, to re-energize not only their own lives, but the sense of economic viability and beauty that this community is to all of us and represents going forward, probably as an example to the rest of the state and certainly the country, that we are people who are resilient. We will go forward. We will rebuild. We will do better, and we will do it together. And with that, I want to introduce a person who has, I think, singularly been the leader of this battle, who has been our cheerleader, has been our expert, and the source of what I would consider the extraordinary results that we have been able to enjoy and celebrate here today, Mark Ghilarducci.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. Good morning. I'm Mark Ghilarducci, Governor Brown's Director of Emergency Services. Let me start off by saying that Senator Jackson put this so eloquently. This has been government's finest, and this is what it's all about. I use the term one team, one fight, and that was what this was from the beginning of the first ignition of the fire, of the Thomas Fire's first ignition, whether it's responding with first responders, law enforcement, emergency medical, emergency management, at a time in the state when we had multiple events happening up and down our state. We moved more than 18,000 firefighters through our fantastic mutual aid system and all other kinds of assets to roll into and try to minimize the overall losses, but there were losses. And the key thing when we have the kind of losses that we saw here and we saw in Santa Barbara was that we needed to rapidly move forward to establish a program to start to get that debris cleared out as fast as possible. We know that by clearing that debris out, we can get the economy moving again, we can get people's lives moving again, and that recovery, that personal recovery begins. And so today, I'm just very pleased to announce that we are here close to 100% completion. We're looking at somewhere around the first week in June of being complete, 100% complete with the debris operation here. After moving, and you'll hear these statistics a little bit from our partners, but after moving over 225,000 tons of debris here and over 300,000 cubic yards of debris in Santa Barbara County, to be able to begin that recovery process. And the Office of Emergency Services, our role is coordinating all of this to ensure that the state our federal partners, our local entities, our mutual aid assets, our private sector folks, all coming together on a focused set of objectives to be able to address the challenges that are in front of us. But it is not one agency. This is a collective, public, private, non-governmental, faith-based, community-based, business, everyone coming together. And that's how that transitions from the response to the recovery. Because now, in a couple of years from now, all of those same entities will continue to work together to bring back Ventura, not only to what it was, but greater, and Santa Barbara as well. It is a collaborative effort. Senator Jackson mentioned efforts in the budget put in by Governor Brown, actions that we are taking at the state level to strengthen our capability to do that and to pass down those resources to Santa Barbara and Ventura and the communities within those counties, as well as our partners at FEMA. I can't say enough about the other state agencies. Again, it's not just OES. Cal Recycle, we're rock stars here. They've come in working with us, and they are what I call the action arm and state debris operations, and have done a great job in being able to ensure that this was done in a rapid, safe, secure, and professional manner. Our partners in the Army Corps of Engineers working in Santa Barbara, tremendous efforts, huge efforts working with local public works, county offices to get mud debris moved out, get Highway 101 open, working with Caltrans, monumental job to open up 101 with the amount of debris that was clogging that highway up. And then our partners at FEMA and the Small Business Administration and the U.S. EPA, all coming together. It didn't matter the patch you had on your shoulder, the color of your uniform. It was one team, one fight moving forward. And so we'll hear from our partners in a little bit, but I want to thank them all, and I want to thank you all. I want you to know that while these debris operations are coming to a close, the works really now just begins, working together to ensure that we rebuild back Santa Barbara and Montecito and Ventura. We bring it back stronger and even better than it was before. So with that, now I'm going to introduce Bill Roach, who is my great partner at FEMA. He's the federal coordinating officer assigned to the 2017 wildfires. Bill.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here to speak a little bit about the great efforts that have been undertaken and a true, as Mark said, a true unity of effort. What we saw, unfortunately, in December was a situation of how communities could change overnight, right? Between the Thomas Fire and its impacts, loss of property and life, and then on top of that, in early January, the catastrophic mudslides in Montecito that took lives and property and impacted the communities so hard. It was from the local level on up through the state to the federal level, that unified effort was the reason why we could get to where we got to today. FEMA is a coordinating officer. We're here to help our partners in the state of California and at the local level. And that's what we pledge to do. There's still a lot of work left to do here, both in Ventura and Santa Barbara, and we stand here and will stay here until that is accomplished. Want to thank all the parties, the Corps of Engineers and the tremendous work they did in the Santa Barbara mudslide, clearing basins and streams and creeks, and then the great efforts that Cal Recycle did here in Ventura, because the first step in recovery was getting folks, giving them the opportunity to be able to start to rebuild and get back to some semblance of normalcy, or maybe the new normal, right? I don't think you ever get back to what it was before, obviously, because of the devastation. Californians and its communities are resilient, right? They've fought back from events after events over the years, and they'll do the same here. So I want to thank all of those parties, people behind me, but more so really right down to the local levels, and the opportunity to work with the public works people in Santa Barbara and in Ventura and the city and their representatives, because without those solutions coming up from the bottom up, again, we wouldn't be as successful as we are now. And like I said before, we still have lots to do. It's not just about the debris. There's infrastructure that has to be repaired along the way, public infrastructure, and FEMA and the state will be here to provide that funding to get those things accomplished. So now I want to introduce Major Scotty Otan from the U.S. Corps of Engineers to speak a little bit about their efforts during this event up in Santa Barbara. So thank you. Scotty.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Thank you to all the agencies that are both standing behind me and in front of me. It really shows the unity of effort throughout this entire event. And as so many have said before, the wildfires in December were absolutely an unprecedented disaster in Southern California. And as we were nearing the end of that disaster, sure enough, it continued in January when the rains came. And so in the early morning hours of January 9th, the mudslide of boulders and other debris really ripped through the heart of Montecito and jolted the residents out of their bed. From the Corps of Engineers, our hearts and our sorrow are still with those that lost their lives, with their families, and we know that they're still recovering and will continue to recover from that. And so we felt that it was important as part of our recovery efforts to assist, as Bill so eloquently put it, back to the new normal. We want to acknowledge that the early coordination with Santa Barbara and Tom Faham of the Santa Barbara County Flood Control District, even while he was doing the firefight, was instrumental in allowing us to lean forward and pre-position the necessary personnel, equipment, contractors, make the needed connections with the small business, and ensure that we were prepared and ready to go. And it highlights the importance of that relationship and building that even in the early hours of the event, as we know that the decisions and the funding are working their way down. Within a day, FEMA issued a verbal debris removal mission to U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and they asked to clear 11 of Santa Barbara's basins. The major concern was that if another storm came and the debris wasn't cleared, more of that mudslide would flow and more lives would be lost. One of our area engineers, John Stevens, he highlighted the importance of the series of the basins, and he said that the basins are designed and maintained so that they catch some of that flow. And then following the mudslide, the Cold Spring Creek Basin, the one above where most of the devastation occurred in Montecito, was completely full of boulders, some the size of SUVs. Boulders so large they had to be broken up in order just to be loaded into a truck to taken out of the basin. And if that basin had not existed or it remained full, the devastation would have been much worse. The Corps' #1 priority throughout the Santa Barbara debris removal mission is, as in all of our emergency missions, is the protection of life, the safety of personnel, and the welfare of those infected by the disaster. And we do everything in our power to aid in the recovery of that. And so the Corps, as well as our local, state, and federal partners, went to work. We received a total of $110.4 million to remove the debris from the basin. The team of the Corps of Engineers, program managers, emergency management, contracting division, small business experts synchronized all of these efforts with all of the agencies that have already spoken to you, working hand in hand to ensure that the work starts safely, quickly, and effectively. We awarded 100% of those contracts to small businesses. Of all of those small businesses, all but one went to California-based business. And the one remaining used 100% California-based subcontractors. This allowed nearly all of the funds to remain within the state. I want to applaud the small businesses that responded to this effort. Their work ethic and drive really were instrumental in helping the region return, as Bill said, to the new normal. And simultaneously, the Corps quickly secured the necessary regulatory permits to allow the county to dispose of its debris under the guidelines of the Clean Water Act. And the work began on January 10th. In the initial phases, the Corps deployed about 65 employees to the Santa Barbara area to oversee the work. And most of these employees work 7 days a week, approximately 12 to 18 hours a day, deployed up to and over 30 days at a time. Through the hard work of our agencies and small businesses, most of the basins were cleared within the first few weeks. The Corps completed the work on all of the basins and channels on April 18th. And during that time, more than 400,000 cubic yards of debris, that's about 30,000 truckloads. And at some point, that number is so large, it's hard to contextualize. And so if you take all of those trucks and line them up end to end, it would start in this parking lot and it would end in Oceanside. However, the most important aspect of the mission was working in partnership with the state, with FEMA, Cal OES, Cal Recycle, and all of the other state and local agencies. These partnerships were instrumental in ensuring that the vital basins are back to capacity. Our continuing goal is to build and maintain vital relationships with our partners before, during, and after a disaster. One of the ways we can continue to prepare is by working together before the disaster even strikes. We're doing that now as we're partnering with Santa Barbara and Ventura counties on floodplain management study. This will allow us to provide a full range of technical services and planning resources needed to support effective floodplain management. Some of those studies could include investigating channel debris and basin capacities, or floodplain projection, which is effectively projecting damage assessment. Future efforts may include conducting feasibility studies for the formulation and implementation of flood risk management projects. So in closing, I'd like to say the Corps is always prepared and ready to respond to any natural and man-made disaster. And we look forward to continuing our close relationships with both the counties and state and federal agencies in order to keep the residents safe in the future. Thank you, and I'll be followed by Ken DeRosa of Cal Recycle.
Thank you, Major. Good afternoon, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Ken DeRosa. I'm the Chief Deputy Director of Cal Recycle. I have the great privilege here today to represent the professional women and men of our organization. A lot has been said about the coordinated effort that went into making this work, and I'm not going to belabor that point, but I am going to extend our sincere appreciation for our partnership with Cal OES. I also want to recognize, and enough cannot be said about the leadership and the delivery of service provided by the Department of Toxic Substances Control. They set the pace when doing the household hazardous waste removal. They demonstrated great care and sensitivity and really put these things in motion for us to be able to come in and to do debris removal operations. They have been stalwart and they have been outstanding. I also want to acknowledge Ventura County and the city of Ventura, and I'll come back to those remarks and towards the end of my comments. They too have been exceptional. Our great partnership with FEMA, the U.S. Army Corps, Caltrans, pardon me, and most importantly, the homeowners, those devastated by this horrible disaster. As you know, the Thomas Fire began on December 4th, contained around January 12th, burned roughly 280,000 acres, damaged or destroyed more than 1,000 structures, including over 700 homes. This also came on the heels of the horrible fires in the northern part of the state and just sent a pall over emergency response and disaster recovery. We began our work on January 11th, and our contractors began site assessments, and the debris removal began on January 19th. We were also tasked with a transfer and processing facility, an operation at Ventura County Fairgrounds, the Santa Barbara County mudslide debris, and the cleanup of public right-of-ways. We oversaw the intake, the sorting, and outbound coordination of nearly 42,000 tons of debris. Our current projected cost for the debris removal efforts total are hovering at around $67 million. By way of background, I want to sort of explain how we deliver this program, because we operate it pursuant to 3 core principles. And I know there's been a lot of talk about how quickly this work has been done, but I don't want anyone to walk away for 1 second thinking that we have in any way compromised the safety or the integrity or the quality of the work that we do. We have been fortunate with remarkable efficiency and in remarkable safety in delivering this program. But our 3 core principles hover around this: safety. That's safety of our crews. That's safety of the residents, those whose homes are gone, and those who are still living there while this debris removal is going on. It's community safety during and after our operations, leaving a safe and clean parcel that can be rebuilt. Another of our operating principles is documentation, documenting the site so that there is an agreed upon understanding of that property, what remains, the size, and the details of what needs to be addressed. We set expectations, we document deliverables, and we document our outcomes so that everyone is aware of what we saw, what was performed, and what has been returned to the property owner. Lastly, we operate under a core principle of communication, communicating with residents, communicating with local government, our partner agency, and within the teams to maintain awareness and to problem solve as we proceed. But we also recognize the personal and communal toll levied by this disaster, the loss felt by every victim and every victim's neighbor. It goes without saying the randomness of this disaster is striking and horrifying. We recognize this human element, and it compels our empathy and reminds us what is at stake. Specifically, we are partners in rebuilding community. I attended a community meeting early on before work even began, and I was struck by the fact that the meeting was held in a Baptist church, a place that gathers community. It's important to point out that this awareness, this understanding is not exclusive to Cal Recycle, our state, or our federal partners. The contractors themselves, whom we work with, who go out and do this work every single day, understand this ethos. And share a story from a morning briefing that I attended in the middle of February. 6 o'clock in the morning, 300 crewmen in a community college theater. I walked out on the stage and I asked them one simple question to begin the morning: what are we doing here? And I had a gentleman jump up and tell me, we are rebuilding community. Even our contractors understand the importance and the intent of what we're doing. So here we are several months into this effort, making significant progress. We have 670 households in the program. 646 have completed their debris removal. We have approximately 23 to go. We've removed more than 257,000 tons of debris. The remaining properties are difficult ones. We have challenges with access to them. They're on narrow roads. We are using temporary bridges to access much of this. It's difficult to move several trucks at a time through that. We will get through this safely, and we will complete this. Our target is around June 6th, first week of June. The goal is to restore these properties to pre-fire conditions, and we're working alongside partners to make sure that that happens and that these are safe and suitable for rebuilding. I want to take a moment as I close to acknowledge the city and county, the city of Ventura, the county as well. From my very first phone call with them, I have been struck by their focus, their sincerity, and their desire to move forward and get something done. This community needs to be very, very proud of the city and county and the great work that they have done. They have approached this with confidence, and it has been remarkable, and they have been extraordinary to work with. Senator Jackson uttered a phrase that I had also intended to express this afternoon. You are seeing government at its finest. You are seeing the greatest demonstration of how the public sector values service over prestige. And with that, we'll open it up to questions.